excited about two candidates in the Democratic side who are getting a lot of corporate funding. So,
what do you mean?
Well, Hillary Clinton gets a lot of money from military-industrial interests. Barack Obama is, contrary to what he said on that clip you showed, his main group of funders is Goldman Sachs, according to Open Secrets. So, you know, we have to, like Bill said, build a massive, powerful movement, regardless of who's the candidate, because we're going to have to counterbalance that power from the bottom up. Otherwise, they're only going to hear out of, you know, the right-leaning ear of, you know, of their right-leaning ear.
Francis Fox Piven.
Well, Roberto is right that none of this discussion about this really exciting and historic election, none of it deals with what became so apparent over the last 6 years, really, which was the twisted and corrupted electoral process itself. The election in 2000 was given to Bush by the court, and the election in 2004 may well have been stolen as well, and none of that has been fixed. However, it is very difficult to steal a landslide election. So if the vote in the general election for the Democratic candidate is big, it's going to be very hard to cross that out, to steal it. And that's what's promising about this excitement, about the sort of grassroots electoral movement that is welling up in the country, which has to do partly for the historic contest between Barack and Hillary, but also has to do with the Bush administration. I mean, people are not only excited about the chance to choose between an African American and a woman, they're excited by the chance to throw the thieves out, and I think they'll get that chance. I think that's going to happen. And one of the reasons it's going to happen is that the pattern of turnout is changing. Usually in primaries have very low turnout. This primary is very high turnout, 50%, twice as much as the historic pattern of turnout, much of it among the young, and many of them Barack Obama voters, which leads to another way in which this election is historic. Young people in the United States have shown by their votes that they're not much affected by race. It's as though the changes in the popular culture over the last few decades have slowly worked their way on our collective mind so that you can't do a Southern strategy on young voters in the United States. You can't tar the opposition by calling them black or calling them welfare or calling them crime. That's very healthy, very wholesome for American politics.
Roberto Lovato on that point.
Yeah, the other thing that was stunning for me is I think we're watching the beginning of the end of the black-white electorate. Latinos signal, and Asians in California, for example, and other states, signal the clear end of a country that's primarily black and primarily white in terms of its voting population. Its demographic population is surely already past that. Now we're starting to see that in the electorate. And as a result, as Francis is saying, you have the possibility that Latinos in particular are going to mark the beginning of the end of the politics of the Southern strategy, the politics that plays to anti-black racism in segments of the white electorate, particularly especially in the South. And I think the debate in the Republican Party right now is to try to figure out if the immigration issue is their new kind of national Southern strategy. And you see it in the tension between the hard right leaning of most Republican candidates on immigration versus John McCain's softer, or formerly softer, because he's now towing a hard line on immigration. And so it really is a fascinating moment. I don't want to kill people's thunder to vote and participate. I think we need to see a sort of Latin Americanization of U.S. politics in terms of grassroots movements accompanying and holding accountable the more electoral system.
Why Americans Don't Vote was the name of your seminal work, Frances Fox Piven, then Why Americans Still Don't Vote. What will be your book after this election? You think it's going to change?
I think it could change, and actually, I have a new book. It's a manuscript. I tried to get it to you last night. Didn't make it, but it's a book written with two of my friends and colleagues, Laurie Minetti and Margaret Grook. And the title of it is As Many as We Could, which is a quote from Ben Tillman, the turn-of-the-century Southern racist. Keeping down as many black votes as we could is what the title is about. And the book shows how throughout American electoral history, blacks have always played a kind of pivotal role for two reasons. One is that for 150 years, blacks have had this messianic passion for the right to vote, and you can understand why. Had they been able to vote in the South, it would not have been possible to restore a slave-like Southern political economy, apartheid, and the lynch mob ruling the South and keeping blacks in the fields and very vulnerable. So blacks have had this enthusiasm for the right to vote, and throughout this history, both political parties have worked to win elections by keeping down the votes of the opposition, and particularly blacks. It's easier to keep down the votes of black people because there's so much opposition to them in the American electorate. So I think that could change. And that would be really a phenomenon. We would be a different country if that changed. And then we have to say something about how it would change the world if an American leader had a black face and a rhetoric of decency and democracy. That would be a phenomenon.
As you were talking about keeping down the black vote, I was thinking about Ed Rollins, who became a chief strategist for Mike Huckabee. Ed Rollins